The command cut through the thunderous roar of 72,000 screaming fans like a blade through silk. "Stop the music!" Michael Jackson's voice, amplified across Wembley Stadium's massive sound system, created a silence so absolute that you could hear the flutter of programs dropping from stunned hands. The King of Pop had just done something that had never happened before in the history of British entertainment. He had stopped his concert mid-performance because of what he saw in the royal box. What happened next would become the most talked about moment in British cultural history, forever changing the relationship between the monarchy and popular music. It was July 16th, 1988, and Michael Jackson was performing the final show of his Bad World Tour's British leg. Wembley Stadium was packed beyond capacity, with every seat filled and thousands more fans gathered outside just to hear the music echoing from within. This wasn't just any concert. This was Michael's triumphant return to London, where he had become a cultural phenomenon that transcended music, race, and class boundaries. The elaborate stage production, the cutting-edge choreography, and Michael's supernatural talent had already made this tour legendary. But nobody in that stadium was prepared for the moment that would transform an already historic night into something truly magical. What the 72,000 fans didn't know was that earlier that afternoon, something unprecedented had happened at Buckingham Palace. Queen Elizabeth II had made a decision that shocked her entire staff and would redefine how the British monarchy engaged with contemporary culture. After months of hearing about Michael Jackson's cultural impact from her grandson, Prince William, who was just 6 years old but already completely captivated by the moonwalk, the Queen had decided to do something that no British monarch had ever done before. She was going to attend a rock concert. The decision hadn't come lightly. For weeks, Prince William had been practicing Michael's dance moves throughout the palace corridors, much to the amusement of staff and the growing curiosity of his grandmother. "Grandmother, you simply must see what Michael Jackson can do," William had insisted during one of their regular afternoon tea sessions. "He can walk backwards while looking like he's walking forwards. It's magic." The Queen, who had spent decades observing the changing cultural landscape of her realm, found herself genuinely intrigued by this American performer who had seemingly captured the imagination of an entire generation, including her own family. The logistics of a secret royal visit to Wembley Stadium had required coordination that rivaled state security operations. Sir Robert Fellows, the Queen's private secretary, had worked with Scotland Yard's Royalty Protection Unit to devise a plan that would allow Her Majesty to attend the concert without prior announcement, avoiding both media circus and potential security complications. The operation, codenamed Purple Rain, a small irony given that it was Prince's song title, involved creating a secure route through Wembley's service corridors and establishing a discreet viewing position in the royal box that could be activated without drawing attention. Lady Sarah McCorquodale, one of the Queen's ladies-in-waiting, later revealed the extraordinary measures taken that evening. "Her Majesty was genuinely excited," she recalled in a 2010 interview. "I had never seen her approach any cultural event with such curiosity and anticipation." She had been listening to Michael Jackson's albums for weeks, studying his artistry with the same attention she gave to state papers. She was particularly fascinated by the way his music seemed to unite people across all social and cultural boundaries. The Queen's arrival at Wembley was executed with military precision. At precisely 9:15 p.m., during Michael's performance of "The Way You Make Me Feel," a small motorcade entered through the stadium's private entrance. Her Majesty, dressed elegantly but relatively simply in a navy blue dress with her signature pearls, was escorted through service corridors to the royal box. She had specifically requested minimal entourage, just her protection detail and Lady Sarah, wanting to experience the concert as authentically as possible. Meanwhile, on stage, Michael Jackson was in the middle of delivering one of the most electrifying performances of his career. The Bad Tour had already been hailed as the most technically ambitious live show ever attempted, and this final London performance was the culmination of months of perfect execution. Michael's energy seemed inexhaustible as he moved through his catalog of hits, each song building the crowd's excitement to levels that seemed impossible to sustain. His sequined jacket caught the stage lights like captured starlight, and his movements defied not just gravity but the very boundaries of human capability. Michael was deep into Billie Jean, the song that had launched him into superstardom and remained the emotional centerpiece of every performance. The stadium was electric with energy as 72,000 voices sang along to every word, creating a sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of North London. Michael was executing his famous moonwalk during the song's instrumental break when he noticed something unusual in his peripheral vision. Professional performers develop an almost supernatural awareness of their audience. After decades on stage, Michael had learned to sense the energy of crowds, to feel the subtle shifts in attention and engagement that can make or break a performance. As he glided backwards across the stage in his signature move, something in the royal box caught his eye. A figure sitting with perfect posture, an unmistakable silhouette that belonged to only one person in the entire world. When Michael looked directly up at the royal box and saw Queen Elizabeth II sitting there, watching his performance with evident fascination and appreciation, the shock was so profound that he almost stumbled in the middle of his moonwalk. For several seconds, he continued dancing, his muscle memory carrying him through the familiar choreography while his mind processed what he was seeing. The Queen of England was at his concert, the woman whose image was on British currency, whose portrait hung in government buildings throughout the Commonwealth, whose very presence represented centuries of royal tradition. She was here, watching him perform. The realization hit Michael with such force that he made the decision that would echo through entertainment history. He stopped dancing mid-moonwalk, walked to the center of the stage, and signaled to his band to cut the music completely. The silence that followed was immediate and absolute. 72,000 people stopped singing, stopped cheering, and stopped moving as they tried to understand what was happening. The only sound was the gentle hum of the stadium's electrical systems and the distant rumble of London traffic. Michael Jackson stood at center stage, looking directly up at Queen Elizabeth II in the royal box, and found himself at a complete loss for words. Here was a man who had performed for presidents and heads of state, who had commanded stages around the world, who had never shown anything but complete confidence in front of any audience. Yet faced with the unexpected presence of British royalty, he experienced something he hadn't felt in years, genuine nervousness mixed with overwhelming honor. The Queen, observing Michael's obvious surprise and uncertainty from her position in the royal box, did something that shocked everyone who witnessed it. She stood up slowly, with the grace and dignity that had defined her public presence for over 3 decades, and began to applaud. Not the polite, measured clapping typically associated with royal occasions, but genuine, enthusiastic appreciation for the artistry she had been witnessing. Her Majesty's applause broke the spell that had fallen over Wembley Stadium. 72,000 people suddenly realized what was happening. The Queen of England was at a Michael Jackson concert, and she was clearly enjoying herself. The roar that erupted from the crowd was unlike anything ever heard at Wembley, a mixture of excitement, confusion, and sheer disbelief that created a sound that seemed to echo across all of London. Michael, still standing center stage and still processing the surreal reality of the moment, picked up his microphone. When he spoke, his voice carried a mixture of awe, respect, and genuine warmth that revealed the gracious human being behind the global superstar persona. "Your Majesty," Michael said, his voice carrying clearly through the now silent stadium as he offered the formal address required by royal protocol. "I am deeply honored by your presence here tonight. This is truly the greatest honor of my career and my life." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts before continuing. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have the extraordinary privilege of having Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II join us this evening at Wembley Stadium." The crowd's response was extraordinary. Instead of the wild screaming typical of rock concerts, Wembley Stadium filled with respectful applause and cheers that seemed to acknowledge the historic nature of what they were witnessing. British Reserve and rock and roll excitement merged into something entirely new, a sound that represented the bridging of two worlds that had never intersected before. What happened next surprised everyone, including Michael himself. Queen Elizabeth II stepped forward in the royal box and, speaking clearly enough for the stadium's microphones to pick up her voice, addressed both Michael and the entire audience. "Mr. Jackson," the Queen said, her voice carrying the authority and warmth that had defined her relationship with the British people for decades. The pleasure is entirely mine. Your artistry and the joy you bring to people around the world, including members of my own family, is truly remarkable. Please continue your wonderful performance. We are all here to celebrate your extraordinary talent. The Queen's words created a moment of pure magic. Here was the embodiment of British tradition and formal protocol, expressing genuine appreciation for American popular culture and the artistry of a young black performer from Gary, Indiana. The cultural significance of the moment was immediately apparent to everyone in the stadium. This was history being made in real time. Michael's response revealed the depth of his character and his understanding of the moment's significance. Instead of simply resuming his performance, he made a gesture that demonstrated both his respect for the Queen and his instinctive grasp of what this moment meant for everyone present. Your Majesty, would you honor me and everyone here tonight by allowing me to dedicate this next song to you? Michael asked. It's called The Way You Make Me Feel, and tonight, having you here makes all of us feel truly special. The Queen's response was immediate and warm. She nodded her approval and settled back into her seat with obvious anticipation. For the first time in her long reign, the monarch of England was actively participating in a rock concert, and she seemed to be enjoying every moment of it. When Michael began performing The Way You Make Me Feel with the dedication to the Queen, something extraordinary happened. The song, already energetic and joyful, took on new layers of meaning. Michael's performance became more nuanced, more respectful, but no less powerful. He was demonstrating that his artistry could adapt to any audience without losing its essential character. He could be both the king of pop and a gracious entertainer in the presence of actual royalty. The Queen watched the performance with evident fascination and growing appreciation. Those close enough to observe her described seeing genuine joy in her expression as Michael danced, a reaction that revealed her humanity beyond the formal role she had played for so many years. She was experiencing popular culture not as a duty or diplomatic necessity, but as pure entertainment and artistic expression. During the instrumental break of the song, Michael did something that created a moment of perfect cultural fusion. He performed a modified version of his moonwalk that incorporated elements that seemed to acknowledge royal protocol. More graceful, more flowing, but no less impressive. Then, in a gesture that brought the house down, he offered a subtle bow in the direction of the royal box while continuing to dance backwards. The Queen's reaction was visible throughout the stadium. She laughed, actually laughed, with genuine delight at Michael's creative acknowledgement of her presence. That laugh, captured by television cameras and heard throughout the arena, became the moment that symbolized the success of this unprecedented cultural exchange. As Michael concluded, "The Way You Make Me Feel," the audience erupted in appreciation for both the performance and the historic nature of what they were witnessing. But the evening's magic was far from over. The Queen, clearly moved by what she had experienced, stood once again and began another round of applause. This time she was joined by every person in the stadium, creating a prolonged ovation that seemed to celebrate not just Michael's performance, but the bridging of cultural worlds. Michael, still awed by the Queen's presence but growing more comfortable with the extraordinary situation, decided to offer one more gesture of respect and appreciation. He approached the edge of the stage closest to the royal box, and in full view of the entire audience, offered a deep, formal bow to Her Majesty. It was a gesture that perfectly balanced his American informality with appropriate deference to British royal protocol. The Queen's response completed the circle of mutual respect and appreciation. She rose from her seat one final time and offered Michael a bow of her own. Not the deep curtsy that protocol might have suggested, but a genuine nod of acknowledgement between two people who had just shared something special and unprecedented. The rest of Michael's performance that evening was infused with the magic of that initial exchange. Every song seemed to carry new meaning. Every dance move seemed to acknowledge the remarkable audience he was entertaining. The Queen remained for the entire concert, clearly enjoying herself and occasionally joining in the applause with visible enthusiasm. When Michael performed Man in the Mirror later in the show, the lyrics took on special significance. The song's message about personal responsibility and social change resonated differently in the presence of someone who had dedicated her life to service and duty. The Queen seemed particularly moved by this performance, and observers noted that she listened with the intense attention she typically reserved for matters of state. The concert's finale, The Way You Love Me, became a celebration not just of Michael's artistry, but of the unprecedented cultural exchange that had taken place. As Michael took his final bows, he once again acknowledged the Queen with a respectful gesture, and she responded with enthusiastic applause that seemed to encompass her appreciation for both his talent and his gracious handling of her unexpected presence. After the show, something equally unprecedented occurred. Queen Elizabeth II requested a private meeting with Michael Jackson backstage. The meeting, which lasted nearly an hour, was described by those present as a genuine exchange between two people who had found unexpected common ground in their shared understanding of what it meant to perform in the public eye. Lady Sarah McCorquodale later revealed some details of that conversation. Her Majesty was genuinely fascinated by Mr. Jackson's creative process and his approach to connecting with audiences around the world. She recalled, they discussed the responsibilities that come with being in the public eye, the challenges of maintaining privacy while serving the public, and the power of performance to unite people across cultural boundaries. Michael later described the conversation as one of the most meaningful of his life. In a 1992 interview, he reflected on the Queen's wisdom and humanity. Her Majesty understood things about fame and public service that I had never considered, he said. She helped me understand that being in the public eye is a responsibility, not just an opportunity. She taught me that true leadership means using your platform to bring people together, not to separate them. The Queen, for her part, spoke about the evening in her Christmas message that year. Without mentioning Michael by name, she referenced a remarkable evening of music that reminded us all that artistic excellence knows no boundaries of nationality, race, or social position. The message was clear to those who knew about her Wembley visit. The impact of Queen Elizabeth II's surprise appearance at Michael Jackson's concert extended far beyond that single evening. The event marked a turning point in how the British royal family engaged with contemporary culture. Prior to that night, royal attendance at popular music events was virtually unknown. After the Queen's visit to Wembley, it became increasingly common for members of the royal family to attend concerts, music festivals, and other cultural events. Prince William's enthusiasm for Michael Jackson, which had initially inspired his grandmother's interest, grew into a lifelong appreciation for diverse musical forms. As an adult, he would credit that evening at Wembley as one of the experiences that shaped his understanding of culture's power to unite people across traditional boundaries. The cultural significance of the evening resonated throughout British society. Newspapers the next day described it as a moment when centuries of protocol met modern artistry and found harmony. The image of the Queen applauding Michael Jackson became iconic, representing a new era of royal accessibility and cultural openness. For Michael Jackson, the experience profoundly influenced his understanding of his role as an entertainer and public figure. The respect and warmth shown by Queen Elizabeth II reinforced his belief in music's power to transcend social barriers and bring people together across all traditional boundaries. The Queen's visit to Wembley Stadium became legendary within entertainment circles and among royal watchers. It demonstrated that even the most traditional institutions could embrace change while maintaining their essential character. The monarch's genuine appreciation for Michael's artistry proved that excellence in any field deserves recognition and respect, regardless of its origins or cultural context. Years later, when reflecting on that evening, those who were present consistently described it as magical. A moment when two different worlds came together and discovered they had more in common than anyone had imagined. The Queen's surprise visit proved that sometimes the most meaningful cultural exchanges happen spontaneously when artificial barriers are set aside and human beings connect over shared appreciation for artistry and excellence. The ripple effects of that evening continued for decades. Prince William's childhood fascination with Michael Jackson evolved into a deep understanding of music's power to unite diverse communities. As an adult, he would often reference that night at Wembley as a formative experience that shaped his approach to royal duties and cultural engagement. The Queen herself never forgot the lesson learned that evening about the importance of staying connected to the cultural pulse of her people. In subsequent years, she made it a point to engage more directly with contemporary artists and cultural movements, understanding that the monarchy's relevance depended on its ability to appreciate and celebrate the creativity of all its subjects. Michael Jackson treasured the memory of that evening until his passing in 2009. He often spoke privately about how the Queen's unexpected presence and genuine appreciation had reinforced his belief that music truly was a universal language. The encounter reminded him that respect and artistry could bridge any gap, no matter how wide it might seem. The evening also influenced Michael's approach to his later charitable work. Inspired by the Queen's dedication to service, he became even more committed to using his platform for humanitarian causes, understanding that true leadership meant lifting others up rather than simply entertaining them. Today, there is a commemorative plaque at Wembley Stadium that reads, "In celebration of the evening when tradition met innovation, July 16, 1988, Queen Elizabeth II and Michael Jackson." It serves as a reminder that sometimes the most important moments in cultural history happen not through careful planning, but through the simple human act of reaching across differences to acknowledge and celebrate excellence wherever it appears. The story of Queen Elizabeth II's surprise visit to Michael Jackson's concert remains one of the most remarkable examples of cultural bridge building in modern British history. It proved that respect, appreciation, and genuine human connection can transcend any barrier, whether it's one of protocol, tradition, race, nationality, or social position. Sometimes the most powerful moments happen when we set aside our assumptions and simply appreciate the artistry and humanity we see before us. Queen Elizabeth II and Michael Jackson, coming from completely different worlds, found common ground in their shared commitment to excellence and their understanding of what it means to serve the public through their respective gifts. Their brief but meaningful exchange at Wembley Stadium became a testament to the power of music to unite, the importance of mutual respect across cultural boundaries, and the beautiful things that can happen when people approach each other with open minds and generous hearts. If this incredible story of unexpected cultural exchange moved you, remember that the most meaningful connections often happen when we least expect them, between people who seem to have nothing in common but discover they share the values that matter most: respect, excellence, and the desire to bring joy to others.